Okay, so imagine you're sitting down with your popcorn, ready for a movie, but instead of a screen, it's the world economy in 2025. The tension is rising, the stakes are high, and the main characters, well, they're none other than the US and China, locked in this, kind of delicate and possibly really impactful trade dance. Thankfully, you've brought some amazing material to help us break it all down, and that's what we're here for today, to figure out the big moves that are happening right now and try to get a handle on what it could all mean in the long run.
Yeah, no doubt this is definitely a period of some serious change. And the thing that jumps out right away from the information you've pulled together is how aggressive some of these moves are. We're not talking about small tweaks here. These are decisions that could honestly reshape how the world does business.
Right. So let's jump right into it. And I think the best place to start is with President Trump's big move on April 2nd. That 145% tariff on Chinese goods, that's a pretty serious statement, wouldn't you say? Not exactly a gentle nudge. It feels more like a full-on economic punch. And the White House, well, they're not shying away from explaining their thinking behind this America First strategy.
No, not at all. You really get a sense of how serious they are when you hear people like Press Secretary Leavitt and Commerce Secretary Lutnick talk about it. The way they're talking, it really underlines how much this is a go-it-alone plan. Their whole message seems to be about American economic independence and pushing back against what they see as unfair practices from China. It's definitely a very assertive, in-your-face kind of move on the world stage.
And just when you think it's all-out economic war, Trump hits the pause button, offers most other countries a 90-day break from these tariffs. Now, that's a pretty interesting detail in all of this, isn't it? Makes you wonder, why this sudden change of pace? Did they get cold feet, or was it something else? I mean, we did see that data about the stock market taking a bit of a dip recently. Maybe that played a role in their decision to hold off on broader tariffs.
Yeah, that pause definitely throws a wrench in the works, makes things a lot more complicated. I think it suggests they're at least a little worried about what would happen if they hit everyone with tariffs at once, at least for now. It makes sense. That drop in the Dow Jones probably had them thinking hard about the potential consequences. And this selective approach, it also makes you question who they're really going after here. Is it just China and their sights, or are they maybe rethinking all of America's trade relationships around the world?
So let's move ahead to today, April 10th. How's China reacting to all this? From what you've gathered, it seems like they're trying to project this image of stability and openness in their markets. We've got Premier Li Qiang talking with Ursula von der Leyen from the EU and Commerce Minister Wang Wentao reaching out to ASEAN nations, Japan, and South Korea. And their message seems to be all about supply chain cooperation. Like they're trying to be the steady, reliable partner in all of this tariff chaos.
And that's the really interesting thing about China's response. This emphasis on working with multiple countries. It's the opposite of what the U.S. is doing. While the U.S. is going it alone, China is actively trying to build alliances and strengthen their place in global trade networks. These conversations they're having with major players like the EU and ASEAN, it's not just for show. It's a calculated move, a way to maybe counter the U.S. tariffs, or at least create other ways to trade so they're not as affected by them.
Right. But when you look a little closer at the material, you start to see some of the economic challenges that China's dealing with, too. There's a lot of talk about overcapacity in important industries, like steel and solar panels. And it seems like this isn't a new problem. It's something other countries are watching very closely.
Yeah, this overcapacity issue has been a thorn in the side of global trade for a while. Basically, China's producing more goods in certain industries than the world actually needs right now. And this leads to them selling these goods at really low prices, which might sound good for consumers in the short term, but it can hurt manufacturers in other countries. Businesses closing down, people losing jobs, that kind of thing. And the EU, for example, even though they're talking with China, they're pretty vocal about wanting fair competition and a level playing field.
So it puts the rest of the world, like the EU and ASEAN nations, in a tough spot. It's like they're walking a tightrope, trying not to fall on either side. They don't want to go all in on the U.S.'s tariff strategy, but they also have to think about their own economic ties with China. It seems like everyone's trying to figure this out without making anyone too upset.
Exactly. They're caught in the middle of this fight between their two biggest trading partners. And they have to really think about what these tariffs could mean for their own economies and supply chains. The fact that the EU is calling for changes to the global trading system, like you mentioned, that really shows how uncomfortable everyone is with all this instability.
And it's not just the rest of the world that's divided. The material you shared shows that even in the US, there's a lot of disagreement about these tariffs. Some people think they're absolutely necessary to protect American businesses and workers, but others are worried about the US becoming isolated, losing allies, and maybe even hurting everyday Americans with higher prices. I mean, some of those numbers we saw about how much this could cost US consumers every year are pretty alarming.
It really goes to show how complicated trade policy can be. There are always multiple sides to the story. While the America First message really speaks to some people, others are really worried about the potential downsides. Higher prices, disruptions to supply chains, those are big concerns. And those warnings from experts about how this could damage America's leadership in the world and its relationships with allies, that paints a pretty concerning picture.
So when you step back and look at the big picture, this whole great tariff tango, it feels like it's about a lot more than just trade numbers and economic reports. It's about power. Who gets to call the shots in global trade? And the long-term effects, well, they're still playing out. But what we've looked at today definitely suggests that global manufacturing could change, everyday goods might get more expensive, and there's a lot of economic uncertainty in the air all around the world. And it really makes you think, what will the global economy look like as this all unfolds? Who will be the winners, who will adapt, and who might end up paying the price for these decisions? This feels like just the first act in a much bigger, more complicated story.
It certainly does. It's going to be fascinating and more than a little nerve-wracking to see how it all plays out.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, we'll have to leave it there for today.
Yeah.
But this is a conversation we're definitely going to revisit as the situation develops.
Agreed. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.
Take care.